This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
Ladies and gents, after 2 weeks of leaving me here all by myself, he is back, and it is my honor and privilege to get you reacquainted with the one, the only, Kenny Bergamy, everybody. Yes. Give it up for Kenny B.
Thank you so much. Yes, you're too kind. See what I deal with every day? All kidding aside, good to be back. Without further delay, let's show you what we have coming up today. Plants, equipment, and really just about anything related to gardening. One could find it all at Georgia's premier horticulture showcase. However, hear what one expert said you should consider before even thinking about starting a garden. Also on the show, Georgia Farm Bureau members voice their concern to state legislators and hear from lawmakers on the important issues facing Georgia's #1 industry. And later, U.S. Senator Kelly Leffler sits down for a one-on-one chat about her ag background and the task at hand replacing longtime predecessor Johnny Isakson. These stories and so much more start right now on the Farm Monitor.
Well, let's face it, technology today is simply amazing and life-changing. Things like Siri, Alexa, self-driving cars, just to name a few. In agriculture, the technology that's now available is just as amazing, as it can help producers make decisions to help their bottom line. Our John Holcomb recently spoke with a precision ag specialist about this ongoing and often jaw-dropping evolution.
Farming has been around since the dawn of time, and since its very humble beginning, a lot has changed, especially the equipment and technology that's used, which allows farmers to do a lot more with a lot less, which can be attributed to researchers and research institutions like the University of Georgia and a thing called precision agriculture.
Precision ag on the basic level is just using technologies, whether that's an actual physical technology or tool, from like a machine system, a computer controller, computer, etc., or a technique and applying it to a production practice so that we can improve our production practices and become more profitable. In the end, whether it's gaining more yield, whether it's better matching our inputs, or like I said at the end, what we want to do is become more profitable, but utilizing that technology to do that.
One way producers do that is by utilizing yield mapping technology, which use sensors that can be added to grain and cotton harvesters that produce an image like this one of the different zones around a producer's fields.
So a yield map basically ends up becoming the end-all, tell-all of what we've done throughout the year. It's how good did we do spatially throughout that field. And so all producers are going to know, where my low-yielding spots are at, my high-yielding spots are at. But what this does is actually quantifies those for me throughout my fields and across my farm. So that map ends up becoming, or can become, a powerful tool for us to use throughout the rest of the year.
The yield maps, which are merged with different types of information like soil types and different inputs, combines the data which can be translated to producers to allow them to see just how profitable or how not so profitable their fields are.
When we bring the quantification back to it, we know how high is, how low is, and then we use that data and we combine it with our production costs. So we overlay production costs on top of that, and then take a current crop price and see what our we're actually going to get paid for that yield of that crop minus our production cost. Off of that, we see what our profitability is. So once we start understanding spatially throughout that field, or spatially throughout an entire farm, where we're consistently profitable, or we're potentially consistently losing money in that farm, or we're just breaking even.
Once producers see the data, they can make planning, fertilizing, watering, and other decisions for their farm to make sure they're not losing money. Because at the end of the day, farming operations are like businesses. They need to make money, or at least break even, in order to survive.
What can we do at that point to make production changes to make sure that we stay above that break-even point? So there's a lot of things there. If we look at what our input costs are and what they're tied back to, seeding rate, of course, is one that everybody talks about really quickly. Fertility management is another. Is there some sort of spray regime or something that we've done out in that farm that's changed that we need to look at a little bit differently? Is there land that's never profitable? So if there's land that's never profitable, we might need to take and start looking at changing either the crop that we grow there, whether that's just a different crop rotation, or do we need to switch it to something like pine trees, take it out of production? Do we need to look at some other option or alternative?
Reporting in Tifton for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Each year, Duluth plays host to Georgia's only multi-day trade show and conference for the green industry. Damon Jones tells you why more than 3,000 people decided to make the trip and what kind of advice they received.
It's a one-stop shop for gardening enthusiasts as they can attend informational sessions, check out hundreds of exhibitors, and even get advice from some of the top experts in the field. The annual Wintergreen Conference held in Duluth caters to the most experienced of green thumbs, all the way down to the beginners.
Well, it's a great opportunity just to learn more about the industry, a great opportunity to learn what we do and how we do it, and if you're interested in getting into it, it's definitely a great place to start.
This unique event continues to grow year over year as both attendees and vendors get a chance to expand their networks.
Well, networking is a big part of any industry, so this is a great opportunity for our people to get together, learn what each other are doing to be profitable and to continue to grow the industry. We are up to about 3,000 attendees every time and a very nearly sold out show.
And among those in attendance was Dr. Alan Armitage, who, while considered a leading expert within the industry, still feels there are plenty more things for him to discover at events like this.
We're learning and we're talking to people who are in the business alongside us, because one of the things about horticulture you're always going to find is that people are willing to share. And this is where people meet each other. This is where people get ideas. Like any good meeting is you meet colleagues who know more than you do, and therefore will share with you, and then you're doing the same. It's just terrific.
And he was more than willing to practice what he preached with a walkabout through the trade show, where he gave plenty of suggestions to those looking to get into gardening.
I think the biggest piece of advice is before you start or before you get too crazy, think about the soils in which you grow. It's boring, but the fact is the more compost you can add to that soil, particularly in North Georgia, it's all clay. Nothing wrong with clay, but it doesn't drain very well. And the other thing that I really tell people, start small. Get your little patch, fill it up, find out what grows, what doesn't grow. Your next near your patch will be twice the size, and yada yada. So if you do it all at once, it's too frustrating and too difficult.
And that's the last thing you want when tending to your plants. In fact, the biggest reason Armitage gives to starting up your own garden is really quite simple.
And it sounds so silly, but a garden is supposed to give you pleasure. That doesn't mean it's not work. It's called working in the garden for a reason, but it's supposed to be more pleasure than it is work. So find a place in the back and dig a little hole, dig a big hole, throw some bulbs in, throw something in really simple, put a couple of shrubs in. And then once you get the hang of a little success, you'll do a lot more. But the more seriously you take this, the harder it is. So just enjoy.
Reporting from Duluth, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
All right, Damon, thanks so much. Apparently, it's all the rave right now. After the break, Ray and Marcia are cooking up a sheet pan dinner using high-quality pork. Meals from the field when the Farm Monitor continues. Well, another impressive show of strength for Georgia Farm Bureau recently, as hundreds of members made the trip to Atlanta for the annual GFB Day at the Capitol, some calling this the most important event Georgia Farm Bureau puts on because it's the one time of year that members get to meet face-to-face with state officials and voice their concerns about issues affecting the ag industry. This year was an interesting one as both chambers were in recess to work on the budget, but that didn't stop members from advocating under the Gold Dome.
It's just an impressive time to build relationships with our legislators and be seen one-on-one and let them know our concerns and what we need to help us back on the farm.
If we don't tell them what we need, it's not going to happen. But let's just take, for instance, the right to farm law. If we don't come and express our interest in it, it'll never happen in Georgia. And it's too important for agriculture to not be heard.
Well, one thing about this segment is we believe in nutritious value, and today we have all four food groups. We've got good, great, delicious, and absolutely phenomenal. I think those are the 4 food groups. I can't remember.
I guess. It's close enough.
Welcome back to the Farm Monitor and to another edition of Meals from the Field. Yes, joining me as always, somebody that is both good and great. That would be my good friend and my great friend, Marcia Crowley. Good to see you again. But no, actually today we are, we pretty much have, I think, all 4.
Everything, yeah.
We're pretty close. We've even got the dessert going on.
Yep.
We've got pork going on. We don't do a lot of pork.
We don't do a lot.
But today, and of course, the first thing I asked you was like, oh, is that like coconut chicken? And you're like, no, Ray, that's pork. And let me do my job and we'll get to it. And I'm like, okay, Marcia. So, but no, tell us what we got today.
All right, we're doing a sheet pan dinner. They're like all the rage right now. So I've already kind of pre-cooked some potatoes because they take a little longer. These are pork chops that I've already battered those. So you're going to dip the pork chop in buttermilk and pepper and a little bit of hot sauce. Drip that off a little bit. I know everybody knows how to batter stuff, but you're learning it again. You're going to dip that in a mixture of panko breadcrumbs in there with the regular breadcrumbs. Then those are Japanese breadcrumbs, by the way.
Bring that over here if you don't mind, because
I
always,
it's kind of out of the way.
And what you need to teach me is I always put too much crusting on and it winds up burning. So do you like slap a bunch on?
No,
or you
just a small layer.
Okay, small layer.
All right, and we're going to put that on if you've got a pan that's got a roasting pan, you can put the chops on top of it to kind of help them crisp up on the bottom fine. If not, just a regular sheet pan will work.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to put that on here, and you're going to refrigerate those pork chops for like 30 minutes before you bake them, and that'll help the crust adhere to it. Okay, so I've told you these have already been in the oven for like 10 minutes. We're going to add to that some green beans that have been tossed with olive oil. Like I said, we're roasting everything. That's what makes this so easy.
Okay.
Roasting everything. So it's easy cleanup. And the mushrooms, which I forgot to put on the first time. So.
And olive oil is all the rage now,
Olive oil is all the rage.
Of course, that's big business here in Georgia now.
And you could swap out the vegetables if you wanted. You could use broccoli or cauliflower or whatever you wanted. All right, and you're going to bake this an additional 20 minutes in the oven altogether. Like I said, the potatoes had a head start. And you just bake this for like 20 minutes and you're done.
Okay.
Like I said, it's very, very easy.
But the secret is, like you said, or the key is to put the chops or the pork in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes.
That will make a big difference. Let me just move some of these things out of the way.
Is it dessert time yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
But you're going to love that dessert.
Darn it.
All right, we're also doing a wedge salad, which obviously is iceberg lettuce cut in wedges. But we are making a homemade blue cheese dressing with it.
Okay.
This is sour cream, like a quarter cup of sour cream. And of course, all these will be on your website.
Do you not like me anymore? Because you're like awfully far.
Oh, I don't mean to.
You're like awfully far away from me
Well, I'm
today.
probably out of the camera as well. Half a cup of mayonnaise. I told you I'm not working on all cylinders today, which is not unusual. A quarter of a cup of red wine vinegar. A quarter of a cup of buttermilk. And the other good thing about this combination of recipes is when you buy buttermilk, I end up throwing half of it away. So you've got buttermilk in the salad dressing, buttermilk on the pork chops, and then this is 8 ounces of crumbled blue cheese. And you're just going to stir all that up, refrigerate it before you serve it.
And spill it all over your
stove top? Yep, spill it everywhere. That's makes it even better. Oh, and that has a little bit of sugar in it too.
Okay.
All right, this is a brownie pie. This is to die for. All right, I've melted the butter in there. Obviously, I remembered to do that this time. You're going to add to that a quarter of a cup of cocoa plus 2 tablespoons.
So a quarter of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. Okay.
Quarter of a cup of all-purpose flour. Oh, that's a half a cup of butter in there. A cup of sugar.
I just cleaned this stovetop before we started.
Look at me.
Okay?
I've been dropping everything today. You should see the floor underneath my feet. That's a cup of sugar, 2 eggs, slightly beaten. and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And you just mix all that up. You put it in a pie plate and you bake it for 15 minutes until it's done. It is so easy.
That even I can do it.
You can even do that. I think when they invented the saying easy as pie, this is what they were talking about. It's so good with vanilla ice cream or whipped cream or whatever. It's really, really good.
How many does that serve, depending on your appetite?
I would say 6.
Okay.
And you can add pecans to this. You know, it's just really, really good.
That would be good, pecans.
Pecans would be really good in there.
Good.
But very easy. And like I said, the sheet pan meal is all the rage.
And we do want to thank, we had actually a viewer write in from Minnesota.
Oh,
you
yeah,
were
that was so nice.
Thankful that she did that. She was very, very complimentary of your recipe. So
That's
thank
good.
you very much. And of course, folks, you can make all this yourself as well, easily just by logging on to farm-monitor.com. Every single recipe is on there that we have done since 2013, I believe. We've been doing this, again, we're celebrating 7, 8 years or going into our 8th year. So hopefully it continues. Keep those comments coming in. We want to know that we are reaching you. We want to know how your recipes come out. Hey, you know what? Send us pictures if you want to send us some pictures of your recipes as well. You know, we'll put them up there. I'll show them to Marcia, make her feel all good again. So,
Thanks.
As always, good to see you, Marcia.
Ray.
Thank you, and thank you for watching. We shall see you next month.
Ray and Marcia, great job as always. Now, up next, it's our one-on-one conversation with U.S. Senator Kelly Leffler. What she feels is the biggest challenge facing Georgia's ag industry. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Richard Fordyce, Administrator of USDA's Farm Service Agency. If you're like me, wintertime on the farm means closing out the year before and preparing for the next. From taxes to research, from fixing equipment to buying seed, it's a busy time. Winter is also an important time to visit your local USDA Service Center to discuss the many programs offered by the Farm Service Agency and the Natural Resources Conservation Service, especially right now, when there are several sign-ups occurring. Farmer to farmer, I encourage you to visit your FSA office soon, especially if you're interested in enrolling in either the Agriculture Risk Coverage or Price Loss Coverage, the Conservation Reserve Program, or any other FSA programs. The deadline to enroll in Agricultural Risk Coverage and Price Loss Coverage is March 16th, 2020. But we recommend you contact your FSA county office to set up an appointment and begin the enrollment process now. Why? Because FSA county offices have multiple programs competing for staff time and attention, and ARC and PLC are important but somewhat complex. Plus, if you don't enroll, you cannot receive a payment for the 2019 crop year, should one trigger in the fall. The good news? If you enroll now, you can adjust your elections anytime before the deadline. You also have the option to sign up for both 2019 and 2020 at the same time. For those not familiar with ARC and PLC, these programs provide financial protections to farmers from substantial drops in crop prices or revenues and are vital economic safety nets for American farms. Meanwhile, the deadline is February 28th for the first general sign-up of the Conservation Reserve Program since 2016. This competitive program provides farmers and ranchers an income source for sensitive lands or lands less suited for farming. Farmers and ranchers who enroll in CRP receive yearly payments for voluntarily establishing long-term resource-conserving grasses and trees. ARC, PLC, and CRP are all programs made possible by the 2018 Farm Bill. Our team has worked diligently to roll out the updates that Congress made to these programs as swiftly as possible, and we encourage you to consider enrolling or re-enrolling now. Make an appointment today with your FSA county office. We look forward to seeing you, and thanks.
On January 6th this year, Atlanta businesswoman and political newcomer Kelly Leffler was officially sworn in as Georgia's junior senator. Leffler was selected by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp to replace longtime Senator Johnny Isakson, who stepped down in December due to health issues. During a recent visit to Georgia Farm Bureau, the Farm Monitor sat down with her to discuss everything from her ag background in the Midwest to the new and hopefully improved trade relations with China. You say a lot about your past of growing up on a farm. Tell me what that was all about. What was it like? What did you do?
Growing up on a farm really set the direction for my life. I worked hard. I worked in the fields, worked with our cattle, showed cattle in 4-H. And really what farming taught me was a lot about how to work with others, the importance of community, faith, and family, and I take those values with me every day.
What have you found to be different about farming in the Midwest, the heartland, versus here in Georgia so far since you've been in office?
Well, certainly there are differences in terms of crops, but I think the challenges are often the same. I mean, farmers are faced with unprecedented risks at any point of the year, whether it's weather, supply and demand, trade forces, things that the average business person may take for granted in terms of having to plan ahead and manage risks. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for the business of farming, but also what they do for our country.
Your business background as well as ag mix quite well here. The number one industry in the entire state is agriculture. How important is that to make other folks realize that, especially in the urban areas of the state?
Well, certainly, there's a saying that says eating is an agricultural act. We certainly wouldn't have the plentiful food that we have here in our country without our farmers. And I think what I've focused on, certainly in my role in the Senate Ag Committee, is how can I make sure that we protect and preserve and grow the business of farming, because it is so vital, not just to our country, but so many other countries around the world that depend on Georgia's farmers.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the farmers of the state of Georgia and the Southeast, quite frankly?
Yeah, so I think certainly competing on a world stage, that will remain a challenge, and I certainly applaud President Trump's work on the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. I was honored to be invited to the White House for the signing of that trade agreement. The work that he's done on the Phase 1 deal of China to better level the playing field and make sure that our farmers have the ability to sell their products into those growing and very large markets.
Specifically to the China trade deal, there still seems to be a lot of folks that are happy about it, but then there's some cynicism or there's questions about it. You feel good about where we are and where we're headed with those phases of that agreement?
Yeah, directionally, we're heading in the right direction. There's no question that the President and the U.S. Trade Representative acknowledge there's more work to do, and certainly we'll be looking for kind of the early feedback loop on how that goes and be staying on top of that, because it is a vital relationship to maintain.
One other quick question. Big shoes to fill with Senator Isakson there. Do you feel a great deal of pressure? How are things in the last month since you've been in office?
You're right. I've been in the office for a month, and I'm very humbled to follow in Senator Isakson's footsteps. He's a true statesman and a great example of a leader across our country, and he was able to achieve so much in terms of his work on behalf of veterans and Americans facing healthcare challenges. So I just will look to make sure that I'm reaching that high bar and have learned a lot from his servant leadership.
All right, great job, Kenny. And we do want to thank Senator Leffler for taking the time to sit down with us during her very, very busy schedule.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are out of time. We'll see you right here next week. Be safe.
What he said.